Welcome to our YouTube Live. It is so good to be here this evening and to be able to bring you a special one all about navigating new things. So if you don't know me, I'm Jen and I go by Jenny C, just to make things kind of like, that's how we know which one I am, and that's okay. And I work part-time for a project called Illumina, which might be how it is that you've heard about us. And I work part-time as an almost psychotherapist, which is a bit like a counsellor. And I work with adults around different things that are going on for them. It's good to be here with you.
And hello, everyone. I'm the other Jenny, Jenny S. It's really great to have you with us at this time of year. I love September. I know loads of people hate September, but I love it. So I'm excited to be here talking about new things starting and big changes. I am a psychotherapist and an art therapist, and I also run Illumina with Jen. So who are we? Well, you probably know by now, we work for an organisation called Youthscape, and Youthscape has a couple of projects that we're part of. Illumina, which offers free online support for 11 to 19s struggling with self-harm, and Headstrong, which is our online mental health and wellbeing platform where we offer all kinds of resources and ideas and advice and support to do with your mental and emotional wellbeing. So tonight we are here talking about how we navigate new things, because it's a time of year when loads of us are starting new things, whether that's a new school, a new college, a new university, a new job, just a new class, or a new anything. Something else might have changed in your life as well. We're talking about education, but it might not be. It might be to do with your living situation. It might have been some other kinds of big changes in your life that you are trying to wrap your head around and trying to work out your way through. So I hope what we're going to say tonight is going to be relevant for all kinds of situations, not just the kind of obvious one of new term and new school year starting.
Thank you. And I'm really excited for us to kind of come together and to think about this. And I wonder, Jenny, are you somebody who really likes transitions and things changing? Or are you somebody who kind of goes, no, I really like everything to be the same, or somewhere in the middle?
I am definitely someone who likes new things. So I love change. I fear getting stuck. So generally I'm definitely on side in favour of transition and change. But saying that, and I'll probably talk a little bit about it tonight, I've just made a massive transition and change in my life, which is that I've moved to the other side of the country. And there's loads of things about that which I'm actually finding really hard. So it's, even though I've got energy for it and I am excited by it, there's also things that are hard that hopefully we can talk about tonight.
Definitely. And I think transitions are such a really interesting thing, because I know that I'm somebody who gets really excited about things at the beginning when they're new and bright and shiny. And then something else new and bright and shiny kind of comes along. And I just then sort of forget that I haven't quite finished things. I don't know if anybody else is like this, but I was the person, if I knew I was starting, I remember starting college, and in kind of like July, going out and buying everything ready for college.
Wow, that's organised.
The whole of August, I just entirely ignored the fact that I was going to college until suddenly, like 2 days beforehand, I was like, oh my goodness, it's happening now. And I didn't know that I was going to be ready and I don't know how to feel. And I can see we've got comments coming in already of people feeling the same, of like, oh, how do I manage this anxiety and how do I manage what it is that's going on? And I think the first thing that we have to do is kind of name it and go, actually, this is something big that's happening for me. And we're going to be thinking around a whole load of different strategies and ideas of ways of managing stuff. But the first one is to name, actually, to help ourselves out, especially if we're people that often feel anxious or nervous about different things. It's so important that we go, yeah, this is a big thing that is happening for me. And I need to put in stuff to help me. And not just like I do by putting stuff in like 3 months before it happens and then just ignoring it for a lot of time. We need to kind of be really consciously thinking about all kinds of different things. And I've got a big transition going because I'm pregnant at the moment. And I noticed the same thing happening. As soon as I became pregnant, I was like, I'm going to buy everything you need for a baby. and then just like promptly going, oh, I'm going to move on to thinking about something else. But just as we're going to help you think about today, it's so important to acknowledge the feelings that we have, the thoughts we have. And yeah, Jennings, you're going to talk about like why we might find it hard as well.
Yeah, and there's loads of reasons why change is hard and why transitions are hard. And it's not just, like someone said here that, going into a change, already knowing that you suffer from anxiety, of course, a new thing is going to be something that's going to possibly ramp that up. But there are all kinds of reasons why all of us find change hard. Those of us who love it and those of us who don't love it, who maybe even hate it or fear it. First of all, is that a change is taking us into something unknown. Like we actually don't know what life's going to be like on the other side of the change because it's a new thing. And we might know all kinds of like information about it. Like I know I'm supposed to be in at this time and meet this person and this is my timetable. But actually we've no idea what it's going to feel like to be there. We don't know what's going to be asked of us. We don't know what the people are going to be like exactly and how we're going to get on. And our brains are actually like they have an inbuilt suspicion of the unknown, and that's kind of what's kept us alive probably as a species for for thousands and thousands of years, is that we're suspicious of new things because they might be dangerous and they might be a threat and we need to be on guard. So there is inbuilt in all of us like a kind of suspicion towards what we don't know, which is really important. But obviously sometimes that kind of takes over so that we feel completely just overwhelmed with fear and we can't recognize the good things and move forward. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we manage that. But so there's a really important thing for all of us, which is change takes us into the unknown, and it's normal and human and built into us that we should have some kind of suspicion of that. Familiar things feel safe. And it's a really interesting fact that even familiar things that are bad and that we hate, because they're familiar, they feel a bit more safe, weirdly, than things that we don't know. So we might be transitioning from one difficult experience or difficult context into one that we don't know what it's going to be like. But the fact that we know what was before, we know how to deal with that, we know what to expect, can often feel like easier to manage than what is unknown. So and I guess another important thing is that in order to go through life, and I think especially in the age bracket of like I don't know, like maybe 11 to 25, what we call adolescence, in order to feel safe and feel okay, we need a tribe. We need to know where we fit in. We need to know where we belong. We need to know that there are other people like alongside us and that we're accepted by them. And when we go into a new thing, we don't actually have that. Now, you might be going into a new thing with some of your friends from before, but we also don't know entirely how that's going to be. And actually, that's one of the hardest things that I found about moving across the country, is that even though lots of things have been great, it's like, I don't know who my tribe is yet. I don't know who my people are yet. And that's really huge for me, even though I'm obviously not in the 11 to 25 age bracket anymore. I still want to know who my people are. I want to know who the people are who make me feel safe, make me feel like I can be myself, and they like accept me for who I am. That's something I'm finding really hard. And all of us going into new things, we need that. And I guess we don't know before we get there who those people are going to be. And often it can take a little bit of time as well to build those relationships. So that's big. And I guess another thing of why it's hard is that it's tiring. Oh my gosh, like new things are tiring. They take energy. It takes way more energy to turn up to like a room of people that you don't know, where you don't know what you're going to be asked to do. Like emotionally, that takes way more energy than just rocking up to the same thing that you've been doing every Tuesday for the last like 2 years. Yeah, there's something about recognizing that changes are just tiring things. Like you might come home after a day in a new place and just feel like exhausted. And, that totally makes sense. It's because it is tiring to do new things. And I can see Tanya said, I love watching movies I've already seen before because I know what's going to happen. Yes, Tanya. And do you know what? That can actually be like a healthy thing for us psychologically as well. I read another psychotherapist talking about this recently, that actually one of the ways that we can manage our anxiety, if that's something we struggle with as well, is by watching familiar things where we know what's going to happen and we can almost trust them. We know how they're going to play out. And I love that. I actually love to watch some of the rom-coms that I've watched like a million times because I find them really reassuring. And so, Tanya, you're really onto something there. That can be a really good strategy for calming ourselves down and helping ourselves to go into something new, is maybe beforehand by just watching something really familiar that can take our anxiety down. So I feel like there was a lot of reasons there I threw out to you as to why transitions feel hard. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not just you, it's not just some people that find transitions hard, even people like me who love change. There are all kinds of reasons that are inbuilt into us as humans as to why change and transition is hard. So it's okay to go into it knowing it's going to be hard, but that doesn't mean it needs to overwhelm us. Or make us feel like we can't cope. And we're hopefully going to give you some tips for how to manage that better.
We are. And I love, Jenny, how you've talked about kind of feeling anxious and feeling overwhelmed and how common that is when we're going through some kind of transition, something new. And if you've met me through sort of Illumina or anything else, then you'll know that I love talking about how we feel. But I recognize also that we find it really hard as humans, really often, to name what we're feeling. And if you recognize as well that that's the same for you, and that you find it really hard to name what you're feeling about a situation, then a feelings wheel, like we've got on the screen here, can be really helpful. And if you just put into Google feelings wheel, then like hundreds will come up. There's so many. Pick the one that you like the best. This is one of my favorites. And being able to name how it is that we are feeling in a moment calms us down. It's putting language around that feeling. And that's because we can't feel and think at the same time. And so when you notice that kind of my heart's racing, my hands are shaking, all of these sorts of things, I'm feeling nervous about this situation. As soon as you're able to name it and say, this situation makes me feel nervous. Or it might be looking at the feelings wheel as something else. This situation makes me feel grief, that it isn't where I used to be. This situation makes me feel worried. This situation makes me feel excited. Any of those kind of things, then it means that the feeling isn't quite as strong. And it can be really common for us to get a bit frightened by really strong feelings. We can kind of go, I want to ignore that feeling, or I want to push it down. Whereas instead, if you can kind of think of it as, actually, it's really normal for me to feel all these things about something new that's going on. And as soon as we feel them and let ourselves feel them, they won't stick around forever. I read something in a book that said an emotion only lasts for 90 seconds. But when we feed it, it lasts for longer. So if you start going, oh my goodness, going into year 10 is going to make me really scared. I'm really scared. I'm really scared. I'm really scared. And then you start listing all the things that might make you scared. It's then feeding that emotion. Whereas if you're able to go, okay, all right, yeah, I'm feeling a bit scared. So I'm going to do some things to help me with this. Or I'm going to talk to somebody about it. It can be really helpful. One of the best ways of beginning is to name, well, what am I feeling about this? And if I'm not sure, maybe I'll have a look at a feelings wheel, or I'll talk to people around me and see how they feel about things. And even, like Jenny and I have both just said, we might share the same name, but we might also feel really differently about a new thing. And so it's okay if everybody else around you is getting really excited about starting college or is really nervous and you go, I don't feel like that at all. It's totally okay for you to feel something different to everybody else. And it's all right for you to kind of go, right now, that's how things are for me, and that's okay. So like our first tip would be name as much as you can beforehand. This is what's going on for me right now. This is how I'm feeling. This is kind of, this situation makes me feel this. And it won't last forever. But right now I might need to be really gentle on myself because that's how I'm feeling.
I think sometimes as well, we can feel scared of naming the feeling. Like, I'm scared, like the anxiety, the fear is there. And if I kind of like own up to it or name it or like actually like really feel it, it will completely overwhelm me and destroy me. And our feelings can't do that. It can feel really terrifying because we fear that they might, but they actually can't. And actually facing into a fear and even naming it helps us to move through it and come out the other side. So yeah, that's a great first tip. Okay. So here's another, let's think a little bit practically of how we can help ourselves. So getting organized. Now, I imagine that some of you who are like, yes, I love getting organized. And maybe some of you who think, I'm just not that person. I'm just not an organized person. I don't really want to be organized. So I am speaking to all of
Maybe
you,
both.
whichever one you are, or maybe you're both. Yeah, in some things you love to be organized. I guess like Jen was saying, she got organized in July, ready for college. She was super organized, but then in August, she just like
Yeah.
completely like your mind
Like,
went somewhere
I
else.
believe that I'm organised, and then it catches up with me. Genuinely, every year before Christmas, I believe I've bought all my Christmas presents. It gets to 2 days before Christmas, and I'm like, oh, I didn't. I just realised I didn't. Every single
So
year.
maybe you're both. Maybe you're one or the other. Maybe you're both. But what we're talking about here is about control. And this is something, if those of you who've done Illumina will know, we talk about this. Like, what are the things in life that I can control, and what can't I control? So I can't control what is going to happen maybe in the classroom or in my job or in my new living situation or whatever the thing is. I don't know the future. I can't control what's going to happen because it's reliant on other people. But what are the things that I can control? Because it's much better, rather than just worrying about the things that we can't actually control, to actually just take some of that energy and put it into the things that we can control. And maybe there are things that we can do to prepare. Maybe like the stuff you need. Jen was talking about going and buying school supplies. Maybe there are some folders, some notepads, pencil cases, things that you can get ready, a school book, a school uniform, or, if you're going into somewhere where you don't have to have a uniform, think about what you're going to wear. Now, I'm not trying to say like obsess about what to wear so that you look amazing. But do think about what you're going to wear so that you don't stress about it on the morning. Like, think about what all you could wear that will make you feel comfortable and make you feel like yourself, and know that you're going to wear that so that you don't then on the morning, like when you're feeling anxious or stressed, add to that. And I don't even know what I'm going to wear. So there are things that we can organize, things that, you might want to tidy your desk. Or if that's not a thing you do, maybe try it, maybe see how it feels, because often there's a funny connection between the things that we can control and the things that we can't. Is that when we take control of the things that we can control, it often helps us to feel calmer about the things that we actually can't control. There might be information that you can find out about what's going to happen in this new place or in this change situation that you're going into, just to know some of those things ahead of time. And maybe buying yourself something like a new notebook is a nice way to treat yourself, to do something nice for yourself when you're in this kind of slightly scary space of this transition, to think about just some I guess a way that's going to help you be a bit more organized, but also is just going to show yourself a little bit of love, so you're feeling a bit cared for and a bit ready to go into whatever this new change is. Next tip.
And I guess also that makes me think about traveling there as well. So
Yeah,
this might not be the same for all of you, but I know sort of I grew up living somewhere really rurally. And so I knew that to get to college, I had to get 2 buses. And I had to practice that beforehand, because I knew on the day, otherwise I'd be a bit like, I don't know where to go. I don't know where these buses go from, those kind of things. So it might be that you live somewhere where you're going to be traveling somewhere new that you're going to have to think about. And I'm going to give it away now, but I grew up on an island where lots of people then had to get a ferry as well. And so it was important for them to feel organized, of like getting the timings right. So if you notice that you're somebody who can quickly feel really anxious about things, then think, okay, well, how do I manage these timings of getting here? Do I need to arrive early so that I feel calmer? All of these kind of things. And you may well want to ask somebody to help you with that, whether that's sort of a friend who's going to be going to a new place with you, so you agree that you'll do it together. whether that's asking an adult that's in your life of like, actually, I need you to help me plan how I'm going to do this. I need you to help me plan where I have to go on the first day, or how I'm going to get there, or what the options are for taking lunch with me. Any of those kind of things. You may well want to ask somebody who knows you and knows the kind of person that you are for what sort of help it is that they can offer you, and to help you feel ready beforehand. But the other side of what as well is thinking about how you can ask for help when you're there. And especially if you've had a lot of support where you've been before, suddenly going somewhere new can feel really frightening, because it can feel like, well, I had a really familiar teacher in my last year, and now I've gone to a different school and I don't have that teacher anymore. Or I remember I went on a gap year and just suddenly went, I don't know the other people who are on my gap year. I don't know who the people are that are good to ask for advice or not. And so it's really important that you kind of work out, this is what I need. Who can help me do that?
Mm.
It might be that you kind of want to say to somebody, actually, I need you to help me find out where places are. Or I need like a practical support. Like, I know in college I can get extra help. I don't know how to access the extra time for exams. You know, all of these kind of different things. And we can often get like a bit of a voice in our head that says, oh, we shouldn't ask for help, or being a burden, or being too much if we do those things. But always remember that it's somebody's job in those places to make sure that you get all the help you need. So if you need to, just remind yourself that's okay. It's their job to help me. I'm not asking too much. I'm not being too much. Any of those kind of things that you might get.
They won't have anything to do if you don't ask, you see. They'll just be sitting at school twiddling their thumbs, or
Exactly.
university or wherever.
Definitely, definitely. And if you have other people like kind of social workers or youth workers, people who can help do what we call advocate for you. So if you kind of go, I need this, I know this is the help I need, but I don't know how to find out how to get it. Find out if they're the people also who can then set up meetings for you, or explain some of your story as well to other people. All of those kind of things are an option. But I think it's really helpful to sort of write a list beforehand of, this is the help I'm going to need. And then next to that, write, and here are the people who are going to help me with it. Because you're then able to kind of go, all right, I need to find out who these people are. I need to get this help because you deserve it. And it's so important to go, yes, I'm going to do this.
And actually, you can probably find out who a lot of those people are before arriving somewhere new. So I guess I'm thinking especially about in education, like schools, colleges, universities, places like that. They will have a section. If you go to their website, they will have a section which is about pastoral support or mental health and well-being or counselling. Like, so you can like look around and find out what they say they offer. You might be able to get in touch with them ahead of time. Certainly, like universities often have like student services you can contact. But even to go in knowing, okay, the person who is the counsellor or the person who does pastoral support is called this. So I'm going to try and talk to my tutor or whatever and say, how would I find this person, or how do I get in touch with this person I'd like to? So you can do like a little bit of like your own private research, so that you know what they actually have. You're not kind of going in to a new place going, I don't even know what's on offer here. You can do a bit of research to help yourself out. So that's like a good tip before you start.
And I imagine lots of that you could kind of do over email as well, couldn't you? We're not kind of saying you now need to ring somewhere if that feels really difficult. But yeah, usually.
And I think, related to that, it's good to think about, like Jen said, like what you need. Because, both of us work with a lot of young people, and we hear a lot of people saying this is so unhelpful when someone does this, or when someone does this, like this is the worst thing, or when someone reacts like this, or when they tell me this. So think a little bit about, what is it that you need? What would be helpful? Because that can be so helpful to say to somebody, I really struggle with this. And I think what helps me best is when I can do this, or someone can say this to me, or I have a room that I can go to, or somebody, whatever it is, think about, like, because you're probably quite an expert on what you need and what helps you, more so than someone who's meeting you for the first time. So you can think about that for yourself. and ask for it. Now, a big part of, I guess, the transition is not just thinking forward about the new thing, what it's going to be like, what it's going to feel like, those kind of things. But it's also about recognizing that every change involves a kind of a loss. Because we've lost what we had before, whether that was like a living situation, a certain school, a certain year group, a certain experience. Like we've lost that has ended. And part of what makes transitions hard is that we feel a lot, that sense of loss and sadness for having lost that. And we sometimes take that in, and it's really hard for us to be able to enjoy the new thing and let it be what it is, because actually we've just kind of brought all of our sadness into the new thing. So I think it's really important for us to, like, one, recognize what we're grieving, what we've lost, what was good, what we've had to let go of and leave, but also to recognize that that's a different thing from going into a new thing. And we need to be able to do both things, to be able to kind of grieve what we've left behind, but also then to step into the new, recognizing that it's going to be different. And it can be a really hard thing if what we've left has felt good and safe and supportive. It can feel really hard. But even if it was difficult, we knew, like I said, it was familiar. And it can still feel hard to move into the new, and also hard not to compare the two. And comparing things in life is rarely a good idea, especially when something's new and it hasn't really had a chance to show you what it could become. You know, we don't compare our old friends who we knew for 5 years with someone that we've known for 5 minutes, because that's not really a fair comparison. And we need to recognize what it means to us that we've had to leave something else, what it means that we have lost something. It's hard as well, because often we don't have a choice about endings. You know, if we've had to leave a family situation, maybe there has been loss in our lives, maybe we have lost someone, and that's part of what's made this having to transition to something new. Even if it's just leaving one school, or even like one year group and going to a new school or college or uni, or suddenly maybe a year group where there's a big change or step up, like an exam year, or going into like year 12 or 13. We often don't get a choice about those endings. You know, we just have to go on, and no one really cares what we think about it. So I guess coming back to that feelings wheel that Jen was talking about, it's really important to be able to name, this is how I feel about having had to leave my old school, or having had to leave that year, or having had to leave that situation. These are the feelings that I have about that ending, and about maybe not being able to choose it, or that teacher having left, or that person having gone from my life. It's important to acknowledge the kind of hurt and the pain in that. But also, I guess it's a sign that we were really grateful for that thing. It's a sign of like recognizing what was great and what was wonderful about it, a way of being grateful for it and like honoring it, if you like, is being able to say, and it was really hard to leave. It was really hard for that to end. And then being able to do that enables us then to be able to make a space for something new, which isn't trying to just replace the thing that's before. It's going to be new and it's going to be different. But it allows us to make that space. If we can put those feelings, that kind of sadness, maybe even anger and loss, if we can put those feelings where they belong with the thing that we've lost, rather than like dragging them into the new thing that we're going into, that we don't really know what shape it's going to take yet.
And it's so important, isn't it, for us to kind of name, actually, these are the feelings that I have about this. It makes me think about when I left a job a little while ago, and I missed the job, and I missed the people, and I missed when it was familiar. And I kind of went into it going, I'm going to have all this amazing stuff happening in the future. But also I just need to go like, yeah, I feel really sad that that's ended. But sometimes it can be almost the opposite, I think, as well, where we can have had such a bad experience somewhere where we just go, I am so excited to leave for this next thing. And this next thing is going to be perfect, and it's going to be amazing. And I'm going to be the best version of me that's ever existed. all of those kind of things. And then suddenly we have a bad day. And suddenly we go, oh, okay. So imagine it's going off to university. We suddenly go, oh, uni isn't quite as amazing as I thought it was going to be. I'm still me, but I'm in a different place. Or perhaps we kind of knew as soon as we start year 12, it's not going to be like year 11, it's going to be perfect. And then it isn't. And so one of our top tips is to prepare beforehand, because those days are going to happen. We don't want to be able to say to you, oh, as soon as you begin this new thing, your life's going to be amazing. Because we know that amazing isn't something that something can be all the time. And your tough days will feel really tough, because that's what happens in tough days. But you can also recognize, actually, I need to put stuff into place beforehand so that the tough days aren't quite as tough as they could be. So I'm a big fan of generally kind of like being outside. But since I've become pregnant, I can't run or walk as far as I used to be able to. And so I had to then think, oh, I don't have the thing to rely on to manage if things are tough. I've got to work out what things are like for me in this new season. And that might be the same for you. Maybe historically, whenever things weren't going well, you kind of went, oh, I'll go and talk to that person. And now moving somewhere different, you kind of have to go, oh, I've got to get used to how I'm going to manage when things are tough now. And one of our best ideas maybe is to have a list of things that you go to when things are tough. So a list of, these are some of my favorite foods. So I'm always going to make sure that I've got some of these in just in case. And this is my playlist that I listen to on the way home when things have been tough, just so that I know that I've got this ready. And these are the friends that I'm going to call when things are really feeling really tough. These are the films I'm going to watch. This is what it is that I'm going to do to look after myself. Because in the middle of a really tough day, it's so hard to think, what am I going to do to shift this mood? Or what am I going to do to make things better for me, or to make sure tomorrow isn't tough? It's so hard in that moment. Whereas instead, if you're able to go, oh, actually, I've got everything ready for me to manage this, it takes some of the pressure off you. And you might also be able to look at a timetable of the year and recognize, I know this is going to be a tough day. That might be because it's things like exams, and you find exams really hard. It could be things like the anniversary of something happening, or somebody else's birthday, or all these kind of things. That as much as possible, if you're able to name to yourself beforehand, that day is going to be really tough. I need to make sure I've got some really good things in place to help look after me. And perhaps it's also going to be who it is that you choose to spend time with on those days as well. If you've got people around you who drain your energy, you might need to make sure that you've got other people with you who give you energy and support just on those days when things are feeling really tough. And if you're moving away somewhere where you've got to kind of sort your own meals or anything like that, you might want to have like your emergency £20 for then the tough days to get the takeaway. Any of those kind of things. I have some sweets that you can't buy anymore. They went out of stock. But occasionally you can get boxes of them on eBay. So they're like my tough day sweets. And so I know I can't buy them in the shops if I'm having a tough day. So I have to keep the boxes of them sort of ready. And that's, for me, one of the things I do. And that sounds really funny to say. I've never really told people before. But you might have other things for you are like, yes, I'm the same. I have a playlist that I listen to, and I know that I need that. If you don't have these kind of preparations for the tough days, we would really want to encourage you to go, yes, how am I going to put these in? Let's sort these out too.
Yeah. I've just seen as well, Emma said, I had a bad experience at school with unsupportive teachers. So in a way, I'm glad I'm leaving and going to a new college. And we really hope that that's a great experience for you, Emma. But I guess I would also like to think, if you came across someone like that teacher again, and hopefully you never will, But what are the things that you would want to say to somebody else? Say, do you know what I find really unhelpful about this teacher? And what I really need is, like, how would you ask for help if you face a difficult teacher again? How would you put into words, I guess, what you need and what's not okay about this situation? Because that's good then, because then you know you have a plan, that you don't think you're going to get a teacher like that again. But even if you did, you've kind of got a plan in place of what you would do and how you would deal with that. So we're going to talk about a couple more tips just before we finish. So another thing we can do to help ourselves is about routine and structure. So I guess this is a little bit like what we were saying earlier about planning, about like what you can do in advance. And again, like some personalities love a bit of routine and structure and some hate it and feel constrained by it. But there's a lot of evidence from that's been done by psychologists looking at our brains that actually shows that when we have some measure of routine and structure in our lives, it actually helps to like lower the tension and make us feel better. A lot of this was done actually during COVID, when everyone was like, I'm locked in at home, I don't know what to do, I'm going berserk. And a lot of the research that came back said, do you know what, having like routine or structure in your day is going to help you. So decide to get up at a certain time, decide to stop for a coffee or whatever at a certain time, decide to go for a walk at a certain time. It sounds crazy, but when we can put those things into our day, it actually helps us. And because there's so much about new things that is tiring, where we can put some routine into place so that we don't have to make those decisions every day. So like I was saying about what to wear, you know, save yourself the stress of every day of going, what am I going to wear today? If that's something that ever stresses you, by having a plan in advance of what you're going to wear. Or if breakfast is something that stresses you out, I know that in my house, by the time, you know, I've got the family sorted out and I get to breakfast, I'm like, I don't even know, do I want breakfast? Is there anything in the house I want to eat? It's like one decision too many. So if I'm organized, I'll get something ready the night before, like maybe put some oats or something in the fridge so I've got it ready to go. But there are all kinds of ways that we can put some routine. And I would say things like, it's not just like practicalities like that, but also like plan nice things for yourself. So for me, having moved down to a place where I don't know people, it can feel a bit lonely sometimes. I've got work to do. I've got like things in the house that I have to do. But when I go swimming in the sea, I feel just kind of relaxed and alive, and I really enjoy it. And I feel like this is so good for me. This makes me feel so much better. But it's really easy for me not to get round to doing it. And so I have to like make a plan of like, this time in the week, that is my time. No one else gets it. And I'm going to do that for myself. And I'm going to prioritize it, because it's not just like an added extra if I've got the time. It's actually really important for my well-being. So think about the things that you enjoy, about the things that really lift your mood. Or it might be like getting outside in nature. It might be doing some exercise. It might be something else. But make sure you prioritize that. Is the sea not cold, says Emma? Yes, it is. Although at this time of year, relatively not. You have to get used to it a little bit, Emma. But that's part of what can feel great. I mean, you know, I'll tell you in February how I feel about it. But at the moment, it's fine and it's great. So yeah, think about the things that you can plan into your week, both to kind of save you the energy of making extra stressful decisions, maybe when things are hard, but also just to make sure that the good things that you like and you love and that help make you feel better are there as well, like non-negotiably.
Thank you. I love that, definitely. And one of the other things that almost might feel like a bit of a non-negotiable to think about is how it is that you speak to yourself. Because we all have what's called negative automatic thoughts. And that might be things like when you start going, oh my goodness, everything goes wrong and it's all my fault. I ruin everything. I'm never going to achieve anything. Any of those kind of things. They're all our gnats. And they're things that kind of buzz around, and sometimes we let them settle. And when they settle, we start believing them. And so when you're starting somewhere new, when you're doing a new thing, that's a really great time to start challenging some of those thoughts. If you're going away to university and you know that all the way through school and sixth form, you kind of thought, I'm never going to do anything, I'm never going to be good enough, then that might be a really good time to start thinking, oh yeah, actually, I'm not going to believe that about myself. Or every time I start noticing it, I'm going to challenge it. And as we all have negative automatic thoughts, but the better we get at noticing them and challenging them, then the less they affect us and the less that they impact us. They might only kind of get to us when we're stressed. So yeah, everybody has them, but we can get really good, especially when we're going somewhere new, at beginning to challenge them. You can kind of think of that. That's the old me from the old place, but the new me doesn't want to believe that I am a terrible person or I'm not good enough or any of those kind of things. So if you notice yourself saying those things, then start thinking, well, just because I think it doesn't mean it's true. I'm going to distract myself. I'm going to move on to something else as well.
So I guess another thing that can help you as well is, and this can sound like a little bit crazy because it maybe involves talking to yourself or imagining talking to yourself, but thinking about what you might say in different situations. So you might think about, like, when I meet somebody new, that can feel really scary for me, but like, let me think of something I can say about myself, or something I might say to them, like, I like your bag, like spot something that I like in them and tell them that I like that, or like give yourself ideas of things that you could say, that you could talk about, that you could ask somebody to like start a conversation. Think about maybe like what is a stressful situation for you, like a particular situation that you are dreading happening, and play it out in your head and try to think about, like, what could I say that would help? What could I say that would get a like better outcome? What would I say to ask for help? How could I explain how I feel or what's hard? If you're like, sometimes I get really panicky and maybe I get panic attacks, like, well, what would help you in that situation? Is it if the teacher knew what it looked like and knew what helps you in that situation? So maybe you could have that conversation ahead of time. But talking to yourself can feel like a slightly crazy thing to do, but it can actually really help us prepare and feel like we've thought through some of the situations that we might be facing. Like even putting into words what feels difficult for us, what kind of support that we need. Those are things that are really good to think about ahead of time, so that we're not just suddenly put on the spot having to explain ourselves and like doing what we feel isn't a good job. So yeah, I guess all those things we've been talking about to do with asking for help and was might involve literally thinking about what I would want to say, even writing it down. If you get into the situation where you just feel tongue-tied and you can't, maybe if you have something written down that explains, that can help. And do you have tips on how to make new friends? Well, I guess as part of this, to think about, like, what are good questions to ask someone. Like, everyone loves to be complimented as well. So like, that's a great way to go in, just to spot someone and be like, hey, I like your bag, or hey, I like your haircut or your piercings, whatever it is. And then to be able to just say something like, oh, what school were you at? Or where have you come from? Or what time did you get here this morning? Just something kind of small and practical that like gets the conversation going and like puts a question to them. So then the pressure's on them to talk. So having thought about some of those questions, but I would say, honestly, like, my best tip for making friends is be really curious about other people, be really good at listening to them, because we all love to be listened to and to feel like we're an interesting person. So if we can do that for somebody else, then that's going to really pave the way, I think, for being able to make friendships.
Thank you. And I know we've got 30 seconds left. And so I think maybe in that 30 seconds, we want to encourage you that maybe this is the beginning of what help it is that you might need when it is that you're into this new place. Maybe you want to write lists, you want to check out with people, you want to get organized, you want to kind of have a look at some of the resources that we have on the Headstrong site. You want to kind of all of these kind of things. There is so much help that is available. So we want to encourage you to think of this as one step in the getting help. And thank you so much for coming and joining us. It's been so great to be with you this evening.
And all the best with all of the different transitions that you're making. We hope they go really well.
Definitely. Take care.